For this Sunday, I have something a little different for you. It's from Fulton Sheen. It's a pamphlet he wrote about the dangers and the tactics of communism. You may see a running thread here over the material I've done for the last several days, and you may, I'm hoping, understand why I'm doing that. This pamphlet focuses a large part on the work of one Earl Browder. He was a communist organizer in the 1930s and 1940s, and he spent a lot of time in federal prison in the United States because of his activities. This pamphlet is meant to answer, using him as an example, of the tactics of communism, especially in the United States and in the Western world outside of the USSR. I hope you find this helpful for understanding what we're going through right now. This is The Tactics of Communism by Fulton J. Sheen, and it is in a question and answer format that those who are familiar with Thomistic analysis will understand. Question 1. What is the ultimate goal of communism? Answer. The ultimate goal of communism is the establishment of world dictatorship of the proletariat. 2. How does communism propose to establish itself? Answer. By revolution. The revolution does not simply happen, it must be made. Quoting Earl Browder. Question 3. Who makes the revolution, the worker or the Communist Party? Answer. The Communist Party. Quote, the revolution is carried out by the great masses of the toilers. The Communist Party, as the vanguard of the most conscious toilers, acts as their organizer and guide. Quoting again Earl Browder in his book, What is Communism? Question 4. Does the revolution take place simultaneously in all the countries of the world? Answer. No. The revolution cannot be conceived as a single event occurring simultaneously all over the world. Question 5. How does the revolution take place? It begins with a civil war, which is the condition of overthrowing the established order. Quoting their propaganda again. Revolution signifies the forcible invasion of the proletariat into the domain of property. The conquest of power by the proletariat is the violent overthrow of armies, police, bureaucratic hierarchy, judiciary, parliaments, etc. Question 6. Will violence continue even after the Civil War? Answer, yes, till everyone who is opposed to communism is crushed. After the Civil War has been brought to an end, the stubborn class struggle continues in the form of a struggle between the survivors of previous economic systems. Question 7. Since communism means the abolition of all private property, what will happen to the small landowners, peasants, farmers, and the like? Answer. It must be crushed with violence. Quote, the proletariat must mercilessly suppress the slightest opposition on the part of the village bourgeoisie who ally themselves with the landowners. End quote. 8. What will happen to the city people who own their own homes, i.e. the grocer, the butcher, or the salesman? Answer. They are to be left their property for a while to win them over, but in the end all private property must be abolished. End quote. 9. During this period of civil war, when private property is confiscated in the name of the proletarian revolution, who plays the leading role, the Communist Party or the workers whom it claims to aid? Answer. The Communist Party plays the leading role. End quote. 10. Does that mean there will be any other party permitted in a country after the establishment of communism? Answer. No, communism tolerates no rival parties. Quote, the essential difference between the existence of parties in the Western world and with us communists is that the sole possibility with communism is the following. One party is in power and all others are in jail. End quote. Remember, he is quoting communist propaganda throughout this. This is from a work by Troud. It is the official organ of the Central Committee of the Syndicate of Soviet Workers. Question 11. Will the Communist Party ever really renounce its control over the workers? Answer, no. Quote, the Communist Party will never renounce the role of its direction and its revolutionary initiative. End quote. Question 12. Against which groups will communism fight during the Civil War in order to establish the dictatorship of the Communist Party? Answer. Against A, all forms of private property. B, against all religions, the Hebrew religion, Protestantism, Catholicism, and C, against all education except materialistic, the confiscation of property, systematically and unswervingly combating religion, and reconstructing the whole of education on the basis of scientific materialism. End quote. 13. Whom do the communists regard as the greatest forces standing in the way of world revolution? Answer. The main obstacles on the road toward the establishment of the proletarian social revolution are Catholic trade unions, the YMCA, Hebrew nationalist organizations, the American Federation of Labor, etc. Question 14. Does the American Communist Party have any relation with the International Communist Party, whose center is in Russia and whose head is Stalin? Answer. Earl Browder, the Secretary of the Communist Party of the United States, says no. Quote, the Communist Party does not take orders from Moscow. This statement, however, must be judged in relation to the facts mentioned in the answers to questions 16 through 24. Question 15. Must one be a member of the International Communist Party to attend its annual congresses in Moscow? Answer. Yes. The plenum of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the USSR, December 25, 1935, verified party documents of members. Only members may attend the sessions. Question 16. Did Earl Browder ever attend a Congress of the International Communist Party in Moscow? Answer. Yes. On July 28, 1935, Earl Browder acted as the chairman of the 7th session of the Annual Congress of the International Communist Party. Question 17. Does Earl Browder have any other relation with the International Communist Party than that of being president of one of its sessions? Answer. Yes. He is the vice president of the International Communist Party. During the 7th Congress of the International Communist Party, Browder was criticized for not doing more to communize the millions of American unemployed. So impressed was he that he agreed to participate in a special conference of communist leaders whose aim was to propagandize the unemployed of all countries. Question 18. Did Earl Browder, while attending the Congress of the International Communist Party in Moscow, ever speak of the American Communist Party and the International Communist Party as a unit? Answer. Yes. On July 18th, 1935, he questioned himself and gave answer. How was our party able to penetrate the masses and emerge from isolation? A great role was played by leaders in the strike movement and in the work of the party among the unemployed. In some of the most important strikes, the San Francisco General Strike for one, the Communist Party had a decisive, determining influence. End quote. Question 19. Was any other member of the American Communist Party admitted as member of the International Communist Party during its 7th Annual Congress? Answer. Yes, Comrade Darcy. Question 20. Has the International Communist Party of Moscow ever recommended that the American Communists form a farmer-labor party and establish a league against war and fascism? Answer. Yes. The following is from the Third International Moscow. Quote, under American conditions, the creation of a mass party of toilers, a labor and farmer party, might serve as a suitable form for winning over the broad and discontented masses of the toilers. Such a party would be a specific form of the mass People's Front in America. Such a party, of course, will be neither socialist nor communist, but it must be an anti-fascist party, and it must not be an anti-communist party. End quote. And then quoting another source. In no case must the initiative or organizing the party be allowed to pass into an anti-communist party, a party directed against the revolutionary movement. End quote. Another source, quote, the Communist International attacks no conditions to unity of action except one, and that an elementary condition acceptable for all workers, namely that unity of action can be directed against fascism, against the offensive of capital, against the threat of war, against the class enemy. This is our condition, end quote. 21. Has the American Communist Party ever recommended the formulation of a farmer-labor party or the establishment of leagues against fascism and war? Answer. Yes. We propose the coming together of trade unions, unemployed organizations, the Townsend clubs, minority parties such as socialist and communist, into a broad, all-inclusive farmer-labor party. End quote. Quoting again, we must give much more support to the American League Against War and Fascism, which already represents the largest united front ever built in America. End quote. 22. What does the official organ of the Executive Committee of the Communist International say of those who say they take no orders from Moscow? Answer. Those who say we do not take orders from Moscow are against the proletarian state. It proves they are allied to the bourgeoisie and are the enemy of the proletarian class. To receive orders from Moscow, as Dimitrov said, is to follow the example of Lenin and Stalin. End quote. Question 23. How can Earl Browder be a bona fide member of the International Communist Party and act its chairman at its International Congress and still say he takes no orders from Moscow? Answer. There's nothing to prevent him from saying it. Question 24. Is the goal of American communism different from the goal of international communism? Answer: no. In both, the goal is the establishment of the proletarian dictatorship by revolution. Quote, in the revolutionary situation, the Communist Party, with some of the armed forces to its side, and leads the effective majority of the population to the seizure of state power. Above all, they need the armed forces. End quote. Question 25. What does the word fascism mean to a communist? Answer: it means anything that is anti-communist. Browder identifies it with DuPont and a, quote, system of murder and concentration camps for everyone who raises his voice against exploitation and oppression, end quote. Dimitrov says it is, quote, rabid reaction and counter-revolution, end quote. Note: in order to think clearly about communism, it is well always to translate the word fascism whenever they use it as anti-communist. When the communist orator pleads for the union of the employed or the unemployed, or for the African or the students to fight against fascism, remember, fascism to a communist is anti-communism. Question 26. Is there a fascist party in the United States? Answer: no. Question 27. Is there a communist party in the United States? Answer: yes. Question 28. Which then is the greater danger for America? Answer: communism. It must be borne in mind that the political problem of the world is not a choice between communism and fascism. There are other kinds of government besides the fascist, for example, or our own American form. Rather, the struggle is between communism and anti-communism, whatever forms the latter may assume. Question 29. Do the communists say they are opposed to war? Answer: yes, hence the formation of leagues against war. Question 30. Are they really opposed to war? Answer: they are certainly not opposed to civil war, for in the words of Lenin, Stalin, and Browder, we must turn every imperialist war into a civil war. They are not opposed to civil wars and revolutions which lead to communism. Wars against communism to them are always wrong. Question 31. What do the communists mean when they use the word peace? Answer: peace means the establishment of the communist regime. Peace under any other regime is inconceivable to communism. The fight to maintain peace is a fight against fascism, a fight that is essentially revolutionary. Quote, the anti-war struggle of the masses must be very closely combined with the struggle against fascism, anti-communism, and the fascist movement. End quote. Question 32. What are we to understand by communism presenting itself as the enemy of war and fascism and the friend of the farmer and laborer? Answer: we are to understand that communism has changed not its principles but its tactics. In order to understand the difference, let us assume that A is a robber by profession. He decides to rob B, C, and D, forcibly entering their homes, hitting each over the head with a bludgeon, and then stealing their possessions. He succeeds with B, but finds that C and D put up considerable opposition and fight him off, and thereafter carry guns to prevent a future robbery. A now decides to give up violence as a means of robbery, and so he plans to rob E, F, and G in a new way. He invites them to dinner, tells them that he likes their families, their children, goes to church with them, joins the same golf clubs, and is finally invited into their homes for a weekend during which he robs them. Note that the principle of A's life would have remained unchanged, but his tactics would have changed. He would have used non-violent methods to attain his end. Now, this is what communism is doing today. It has found that its revolutionary approach has been unsuccessful. Some countries have restricted and organized, and so it decides to change its tactics and to use non-revolutionary approaches to attain revolutionary ends. Question 33. Did the change in tactics originate in America or in Russia? Answer: in Russia. It became a definite policy of the 7th Annual Congress of the Third International, held in Moscow, July and August 1935. Quote, the tactical line of the 7th Congress corresponds to the present level of the movement and strength of the communist parties. End quote. Question 34. What is the name given to the new tactics of communism? Answer: the United Front or Common Front or People's Front or Popular Front. Question 35. How do the communists propose to overthrow the established order? Answer: to this the Communist International replies, quote, the first thing that must be done, the thing that which we commence, is to form a united front. End quote. Question 36. How does communism form the united front? Answer: quote, by securing predominant influences in the broad mass proletariat organizations, trade unions, factory committees, cooperative societies, sports organizations, cultural organizations, etc. The masses of the urban and rural poor over the lower strata of the intelligentsia and over the so-called little man, end quote. Quote, communists must establish the closest cooperation with those left social democratic workers, functionaries, and organizations that fight against the reformist policy and advocate a united front with the Communist Party." End quote. Answer 37. Do the united front tactics mean that during an election the Communists should unite with any major party to prevent the election of anti-communistic candidates, even though the Communists have a ticket or a candidate themselves? Answer: yes. The Communists must seek to establish a united front with the social democratic parties and trade unions, also with the organizations of the toiling workers, handicraftsmen, etc., and exert every effort to prevent the election of reactionary and fascist, anti-communist candidates. In the face of the fascist, quote, anti-communist danger, the Communists, while reserving for themselves freedom of political agitation and criticism, participate in election campaigns on a common platform and with a common ticket of the anti-fascist front, depending on the growth and success of united front movements, also depending on the electoral system in operation. End quote. Question 38. Would the united front tactics mean that communism would seek to enter Catholic organizations in order to secure predominant influence? Answer: yes. Quote, it would exert a powerful influence on the ranks of the Catholics, anarchists, and unorganized workers, even on those who had temporarily become victims of fascist anti-communist demagoguery. End quote. 39. Do the united front tactics apply even to the youth? Answer: yes. Quote, the central task of the Youth Communist International is to establish unity of the youth movement against fascism and war. End quote. Kusanen, in his address of the Seventh World Congress, quote, the youth movement and the fight against fascism and the war danger, end quote, Russian edition. Quote, if the representatives of the Young Communist League of the United States had not known how to approach the student youth in a camaraderie fashion, it would have been impossible for them to have developed their great united front action among the students, the most important of which was a big student strike against war and fascism on April 12, 1935, in which 184,000 students took part. End quote. Question 40. Do the united front tactics mean that the masses are to be gradually led to revolution? Answer: yes. The communist parties must advance partial slogans and demands that correspond to the everyday needs of the toilers, linking them up with the fundamental task of the Communist International. Throughout the entire pre-revolutionary period, a most important basic part of the tactics of the communist parties is the tactics of the united front. End quote. Question 41. The united front is then only a starting point for revolution. Answer: yes. The party utilizes their minor everyday needs as a starting point from which to lead the working class to the revolutionary struggle for power. Question 42. The change in tactics then does not mean that communism has changed. Answer: no. Tactics generally may change, but the general line of Communist International, the proletarian revolution, remains unchanged. Quote, we must fight for the unification of all revolutionary forces on the basis of our program of strategy, then pass to the offensive on all fronts. End quote. Question 43. When do the communists propose to reveal their revolutionary principles? Answer: when Marx's writings have had some years of influence, the next International will be directly communist and will openly proclaim its principles. End quote. Question 44. What pledge did Maxim Litvinov give on behalf of the USSR when the United States recognized Soviet Russia on November 16, 1933? Answer: quote, to refrain and to restrain all persons in government service and all organizations of the government from any act, overt or covert, liable in any way whatsoever to injure the tranquility and prosperity, order, or security of the whole or any part of the United States. End quote. Question 45. What is Litvinov reported to have said to fellow communists after the signing of the pledge? Answer: quote, notice that the pledge did not exclude the activities of the Third International. End quote. Question 46. Does Earl Browder love America? Answer: he says he does. Quote, we communists love our country. End quote. See answer to question 49. Question 47. Do the communists advocate violence? Answer: if you will forget the above question concerning revolution, the answer of Earl Browder is in the negative. Quote, communists do not advocate violence. End quote. See answer to questions 24 and 49. Question 48. What is the condition of joining the Communist International, which Earl Browder is secretary? Answer: quote, to create everywhere an illegal organization machine which at the decisive moment will be helpful to the Communist Party in fulfilling its duty to the revolution. End quote. 49. Did Earl Browder, despite his love of America, advocate the united front tactics to win over the sailors and soldiers to foment revolution in America? Answer: yes. Soldiers and sailors must be won for the revolution. All revolutions have been made with weapons which the overthrown rulers have relied on for their protection. End quote. Question 50. Has the International Communist Party ever recommended such a method? Answer: yes. In seeking to prepare the transformation of a future imperialist war into civil war, communists must in every country concentrate their efforts on the essential portions of the imperialist military machine. End quote. Question 51. In obedience to the instructions of the Communist International, what periodicals are circulated to incite revolution in the Army and Navy? Answer: the Soldier's Voice, the Shipmate's Voice, and the Navy Yard Worker. Question 52. No, question 52. Pardon me. If the communists, in virtue of the United Front tactics, succeed in boring from within such groups as the YMCA, church groups, athletic organizations, trade unions, etc., etc., to whom will the control of the organization belong? Answer: in the United Front, the communists must always preserve the role of director. The Communist Party will never renounce its role of director in its revolutionary initiative. End quote. Question 53. Do the new tactics mean that communism has forgotten its revolutionary goal, that it has given way to peaceful reform or the continuation of American institutions? Answer: no. Only downright scoundrels, hopeless idiots, can think that by means of the United Front tactics, communism is capitulating to social democracy. End quote. Question 54. What does that make us Americans if we believe the United Front tactics? Answer: see answer to question 53. Question 55. Has Earl Browder's book, What is Communism, any relation to the Third International, despite his word that he does not take orders from Moscow? Answer: the official organ of the Executive Committee of the Communist International states, quote, Comrade Browder's book is an excellent distribution to the ideological propaganda and agitational work of the Communist Party in the United States of America. The book may be considered a direct result of the work performed by the Communist International under the leadership of Comrade Dimitrov. End quote. Question 56. Which do the American people fear more, the man who makes a frontal attack with a sword or the man who runs a knife in your back? Answer: the American people dislike deceit even under the name of tactics. It would therefore be well to be on our guard against communism, which officially states, quote, we want to attack our class enemies in the rear. End quote. Question 57. How did our blessed Lord warn the world against such tactics? Answer: beware of false prophets who come to you in the clothing of sheep, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Question 58. Who was the first one in the history of Christianity to use the tactics of the United Front? Answer: Judas, by betraying our Lord with a kiss. 59. Why did Judas betray with a kiss? Answer: because Judas knew that divinity was sacred and that it could be overthrown only by some external mark of affection. Question 60. Why did communists use United Front tactics? Answer: because they know certain things in our American life are so sacred, namely our government, our right to property, our right to liberty, and our right to freedom of conscience, that they can be overthrown only by a mark of affection, by pretending that they are our friends. Final question, 61. How long will communism be successful with its new tactics in the United States? Answer: as long as Americans are gullible enough to be deceived. I hope this was helpful for understanding what's going on right now.